So, before I jump in, how many of you guys have actually used spray lock before? Heard of spray lock before? Okay, a little bit. This is perfect. What's funny is we get a mixed bag of contractors. In the States, it's been around for 25 years, so it's been used a lot. But we still get these old school guys that are just refuse to adapt and refuse to just at least be educated on what's available out there. But it's always the guys who have never heard of us before. The younger guys, they're like, oh, well, I'm down, you know? And especially as we get into some of the nuts and bolts of how we're gonna make your lives a little bit easier, I think that you'll at least be interested. And again, my only effort today is not so much to sell you on anything. I'm SprayLock's Director of Tech Services. So my role controls all claims, internal and external continuing education. But today we're gonna talk about our flooring adhesive, and we're also gonna jump into our FRP adhesive. The FRP adhesive is by far our fastest growing adhesive. It's sold before we can make it. We have companies calling and saying, how much can you make? And we say, hey, we'll set up a second shift if we need to. This is our mainstay as well. It's good for LVT, the carpet tile. We do a lot of double stick applications with underlayments and then immediately going over the top with LVT and carpet tile and sheet goods. We do a massive amount with that, and I'll explain why in a little bit. But I wanted to give you a real quick, just a real quick background check of where we kind of came from. After that thing, we developed a version of this adhesive, and again, the owner's goal was to go to something that was really conscious about the environment and not having a lot of waste and stuff like that. So developed this adhesive. We kind of lucked into the fact that it's one of the most high moisture resistant adhesives on the planet. And so we developed that, and then Walmart at this time, they were doing an enormous amount of stores every year, but they had about 24% of their floors were failing due to moisture and due to some of their maintenance practices. So when you consider the amount of square footage in the States that Walmart had, they were spending 30 to 50 to sometimes $100 million a year on claims. There's a lot of money to waste. So they brought us in with this adhesive. We came out and demoed it, and this is the first time. One thing you'll find out about our products is we have instant shear strength. So we didn't know that yet, and I'm telling you, it was brand new, and we had all the Walmart execs there. We laid out a pad of LVT. We had the adhesive down. They installed it, and everyone's like, okay, well, it's sticky. And then they were walking away, and a forklift with a load of flooring came out of the back. This is an open Walmart. Came all the way across, drove straight across the LVT pad. The Walmart execs at this time turned around. They were like, stop, you're going to ruin our test site. The guy literally nails on the brakes, skids to a stop, whips around, and just takes off. And we're like, well, we don't get Walmart's work. And we come over, and it didn't budge a millimeter. And so our CEO said, instant shear strength, immediately. And that's something that we've really based a lot of the productivity that we try to offer the flooring and the vertical wall market. It's not just that our products are faster and easier to apply. They withstand and they meet all the same standards, all the same bond strength tests as any other adhesive in the market, but they increase productivity in a different way. So instead of installing a floor and then depending on the adhesive you're using, having to wait 12 or 24, 36 hours before you can get heavy loads on there, we write into our warranty clauses that state we specifically cover any and all loads as long as it doesn't impede upon the PSI rating of the flooring. So we're the only one that has that in our warranty. So what we try to do is we try to say, look, so we did all these Walmarts, and then what they required is the next day they had to be able to have that retail space open and making money again. We're the sole spec for all Walgreens. They have the same requirement. They have to be able to flip the area of the store they're doing and be able to have that space again. We're the sole spec for Kohl's. For every Kohl's, we do a minimum of about 90 pallets a year for their program. And each pallet covers 144,000 square feet of flooring. So it's the same reason. They have to have immediate access. We tell them if you want to maintain the floor, if you want to put a slop coat of wax on, immediately, go for it. We're good. If you're doing a hospital project, we started off being this gimmick adhesive because we were high moisture and they had instant access, and hospitals were like, well, let's do this wing or this room. But then they were like, wait a minute. this thing translates in a much bigger picture. So now we're doing, 500,000 square feet hospitals, million plus square feet hospitals, where we're covering a gamut of not just the types of flooring that we're installing, but we're adhesive that we're kind of irregardless of the substrate. We can handle porous, non-porous, existing flooring we can go over. We can go over steel in elevators. We can go over glass on walls. We can go over FRP over FRP. We really are a unique chemistry in that way. And so what they found is that productivity, how much the guys were doing, but not only that, how much as installers, you guys know your life sucks sometimes, as far as your work life. You're on your hands and knees demoing the floor. You're on your hands and knees adding a skim coat, or if you're not self-leveling, you're on your hands and knees to trowel the adhesive out. And I've been told by so many installers that that's the one thing. They're already tired at that point, but because of the viscosity of the adhesive, it just rakes on your shoulder a bit. Lower back can kind of hurt, obviously knees and stuff. So we love that this is how we want you to apply our adhesive, as I'm standing right now. And I'll stop talking and start spraying here in a second. But the guys just were more productive. Their bodies weren't taking as much of a beating, and most flooring installers have told me they don't mind the laying of the flooring part. It goes pretty quick. So it's just a different way to look at the flooring installation process. It's very rare in the industry that something comes along from a sundries perspective and kind of can be a game changer. So we'll get into this, but if you have questions, concerns, areas of doubt, I would love to talk about it as we're doing this too. So primarily, resilient flooring is our bag. Okay, I'm gonna spray some of the wall stuff first, because once I spray the floor, I'm not really gonna be jumping on this. And I'll go back and forth. But the reason that we're talking about this today too is we do a ton of LVT on walls in the US. We have accent walls. I was talking with Joe about this. We have one company that they do like these heavy recycled roll finish walls. I thought it was for insulation, but they'll take an 8mm rubber, rolled rubber, hundreds and hundreds of pounds, and they have customized lifts. And they were trying to figure out a way to finish off these big walls that were, 50, 60 feet tall. So it's a lot of recycled rubber, and it's thick rubber. They couldn't get anything to stick because all the permanent bonding adhesives, they needed that chemical reaction, so too much time was going into that set time, and they couldn't mechanically fasten it without ruining the finish. So they brought us in, and when you see me spray this, you're not gonna think that it's possible that this adhesive can bear that load. But if you think about the physics of vertical installations, all the pressure is vertical. It's this way. Physics don't say, hey, the first thing we want to do is go against gravity technically and fall out and then down. It's all vertical. Our shear strength is as strong as any adhesive in the world. And so they were able to take these huge rolls, incredible weight, and install them, haven't had a failure to date. And again, recycled rubber has its own bag of problems too. Being a non-reactive adhesive, once what little moisture is in our adhesive lets go, it just solved a lot of issues for them. So our adhesive is water-based. If you shake it and you don't hear this, I'm gonna do this for the mic.
Thank you.
If you don't hear that liquid shaking, it means it froze. So yes, we are not freeze-thaw stable, but we have required shipping methods in the winter. It's very, very rare that we have. Typically, if there's a problem with the adhesive in winters, it's how it's stored. In Walgreens for a long time, like in the Midwest, we'd go to these sites and they'd complain about frozen adhesive, and I would ask them to show me where they store the adhesive, and it's next to an uninsulated door in the middle of January in Chicago. So everything was freezing. So it will solidify when it freezes. It doesn't go back and forth like water. So we have methods that are already in place for you. You don't have to worry about freight and transit and all that stuff, which is important because when you consider with our flooring adhesive, for example, when you're getting 1,000 square feet in one of these cases, that's 11 pounds of adhesive, and you're gonna cover 1,000 square feet with that. If you compare that to what you're dealing with buckets, and listen, there's a lot of tailor that's sold here. Those are awesome adhesives. This is not me disparaging the trowel adhesive market. The only way that I can show you how we're different though is by painting some broad strokes with those differences, okay? So, but I could hold these 4 cases if they were all flooring adhesive, and that's what, 44 pounds max. And that's 4,000 square feet of flooring I have in my hands. You're not gonna carry that with buckets, especially if you're on a project where you're going up multiple flights of stairs. So that's a big thing, but that translates in about a 1-to-5 savings ratio when it comes to freight savings. So each pallet, 144,000 square feet, like I said before, 144,000 square feet. So we did a hospital in North Carolina last year. It's called Mission Hospital. It was about 685,000 square feet of flooring they installed with our adhesive, mostly Mannington, LVT, a bunch of sheet goods, obviously. But so it was 3.5 or 4 pallets, and the equivalent was 20-some pallets so it's not even just the freight that's ridiculous that you're paying. And right now, fuel's not cheap, so freight's hiked up, pretty high. But it's storage on site. It's storage at the distributor level, So that product takes up a lot of space. And so they found, outside of the fact that we didn't have any claims and it went great, they found some pretty unique ways of showing us. And everything that we have is recyclable. So they had how many cans is that? That's six cans per case, 144 cases. It's a lot of cans. What is that, 720 cans, I think? Yeah, something like that. And what they would do is they would recycle that. So it's about 9 beer cans per 1 can of this. They actually had quite a bit of a return when they took that to recycling facility, and they threw a big party for all their installers. So it's just another benefit there. So what I'm going to do is kind of demonstrate real quick the spraying method. You might think that the spraying with the can might be too subjective because you're used to troweling. When you trowel on a floor or a wall, you're guaranteed by the manufacturer that if you use the right trowel, right notch, you're gonna, as long as you cover the entire area, you're gonna have the right amount there. So what we do when we train is one of these cans will cover 2 4x8 sheets of a wall material, the equivalent of that. So whenever we train, we just say, let's mark off that area, make sure you fill in the entire area, and you'll kind of get the idea of the muscle memory and the metering method that we have. Let me do this. I'm gonna spray just a little bit there's a little safety tab there that I probably should have known you'd pop off. Just spray that out. Again, if anyone has any questions as we're going, this adhesive is the greenest adhesive on the planet. I believe I told you. We recently had the EPA re-up our total VOC content of our adhesives. You guys know what VOC content is? Volatile organic compounds. That means it's anything that's harmful to the human body, whether it's via atomization or consumption. So if you look at it this way as I'm spraying, if we have 1 pound of cranberries in my hand and 1 pound of our adhesive, we have half the VOC content of cranberries. Don't eat this stuff, it's nasty. I have, just see what the show was about, but it's still a construction adhesive, but it is literally that green. A lot of wall products and a lot of flooring products, high-performing, hard-setting flooring products, they have a lot of compounds in there that are designed to boot the moisture out. They're designed to boot the moisture out of the product so that it can set up and cure and get to a point where you can install the flooring. The problem is that you're going to smell that stuff. That stuff that's in there that's carcinogenic, you're breathing it in because it's got compounds in it that are literally pushing it out and it's getting into the air, and that stuff is just so harmful for the installers. There is nothing in this adhesive that is remotely in any way, shape, or form uncomfortable for the installation method. The most you're going to have, you could come right now, some mild sweet odor. So when, huh? No, you get used to it. But we're working around that. I do have an easy answer because you'd be surprised how many people say, my finger's tired, man. And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm sure it's easier than being on your hands and knees troweling for hours, though, or troweling on here. There are trade-offs, but that's a good point because for our flooring adhesive, for example, I'll show you that tip in a second. When you're doing large jobs, people do say that their fingers do hurt. So we're doing 2 things. We're developing a new tip that has a finger plate molded into the plastic, so it gives you something about the width of your pointer finger, your index finger. It'll be much more comfortable to hold on to. We're working on something for this too, to widen this. This essentially will become a pong at the bottom, so it's not and it gives you more leverage too. We have these levers that we manufacture for flooring. They kind of fork over the collar of the lid, and they come down, and all you do is you essentially just grip the can, and the adhesive comes out. So we do have, it's an awesome point because, yeah, your finger can get cramped up a little bit if you're doing a bunch of jobs. Because this adhesive, we want you to think day by day, not panel by panel. With the traditional trowel industry, you got very limited working time if you're using a dry setting adhesive for wall application. And once it sets up, you've got to get your material into it because you got maybe 45 minutes. With this, you have all day. We warrant an 8-hour working time for this. I've gone out 2 weeks. When I wanted to establish a baseline for what I was willing to warrant, I went out 2 weeks and I still was installing FRP on there that when I tore it down, ripped the drywall apart. So it's incredibly unique chemistry. Part of that working time is some of the components that make it a little iffy for us in the winter. But we feel the trade-off of having what we're told. For example, I talked to, you guys heard of Acrovan, which is a wall product? It's made by a company called Construction Specialties. It's widely used across the states. Their first order was 30 pallets. So 30 pallets with the FRP adhesive is just over 60,000 square feet a pallet. They had 0 claims out of that 30 pallets. Not one callback. Well, I take that back. The callbacks they had were reorders, and when they were asked, well, what is it you love about it? At a minimum, most of these guys were getting 50% more productivity out of it. Because what they were doing is following our instructions saying, okay, if I'm installing a room like this, I want to ask myself, how many panels do I think I can set into some adhesive today? If I can do 30, 50, however many panels, spray out that entire area. Get it all the way you need it to be. By the time you're done, most likely it's going to be tacked up because our adhesive does have to achieve tack before you can set material into it. But then you can come back and start setting your panels. You can go to lunch and not worry about the adhesive. Frankly, even though we don't technically warrant this, if you had a couple sheets, you're just done for the day, and you had a couple areas there, as long as it's not super dusty, come back the next day and throw it up again. Most people come and do a light overspray in that area just to make sure they've got activated adhesive, but it has a working time unlike anything else. So what we usually like to do, because I'm just doing LVT, I'm not going to spray the whole panel because I'm just going to avoid getting stuff on the floor there we go. So all you really want on the wall side of things, if you're doing LVT on the walls, if you're doing rubber, if you're doing sheet goods, we do a lot of parterre installations with this product. It's just a consistent, it should look kind of like a popcorn ceiling before it starts to let go of its body. You'll notice that certain areas will kind of thin out a little bit, so you kind of want to come back and fill in those areas. But I can, on a wall application, I can apply adhesive at least twice as fast as a trowel. With trowel, you have limitations because the whole idea of how you're troweling is 100% based on how you're going to roll later. It's all about adhesive displacement. So if you can't displace that adhesive afterwards, you're going to be left with too much moisture in isolated areas, and it will lead to bubbling. It will fail. So we're going to let that tack up and then talk flooring, which is, I kind of think, what you guys are here for mostly anyway. So do you guys do much resilient stuff? Like what do you usually like do? What's the number one installation that you do? Like LVT or sheet goods or
vinyl plank, click.
Vinyl plank and click.
A little more vinyl plank, but I'm moving people out of click and into glue down. So
Okay.
Always a wet set over pressure sensitive.
Sure. With click stuff, what we're finding, a lot of, in fact, manufacturers of those products are coming to us because the products are heavy enough. But they're also so rigid that sometimes it leads to some areas where you can kind of hear that looseness, Well, our product locks in, all that really matters at this state with the adhesive is the lateral movement. So our adhesive locks that down, whether they're just going to do a perimeter spray, or they're going to do like just a real light thing just to give you some added strength. But this has been used extensively. We've been around for 25 years. This was the first iteration of our product, but this is all we do is spray. So we do have competitors in our market, but our patents really lock down some pretty unique stuff that no one else can copy. So the quality really is in the fact that we're really honed in and focused on this as being our, like I said, there's a lot of great adhesives, and this is just kind of one of the pieces of the puzzle that we feel is really important in our industry. When I talked about productivity and just the benefits of how you apply our adhesive, we really do value the fact, again, that because when you're installing flooring, you're doing it every single day. We're not getting you off your hands and knees for one day. Every single day that you're working, and it's hard work. We love the fact that guys can get up, stand up, and all we want you to do is this. Just stand upright. It's going to fall like snow. It's weighted so it can't atomize. So this is used in a lot of active environments where there are active customers, shopping, where there's clothing racks close by. it's, you know, you get used to how it's applied, but people won't, you know, they're not concerned about it coming back up in the air, getting stirred around, and getting into clothing, for example, or on, you know, boxes of toys or whatever. But that's it. We want you to walk upright, overlapping 50% on every pass, and that's it. You know, when you cut in, you can do, so what you saw there was me holding down kind of max pressure, but you can back off a little bit and get closer and cut in without risk of a lot of overspray. I'm not an installer. I know a lot about adhesives. I learn more from installers than I can probably teach installers, but I've watched these guys get so good at applying this. They don't have any need for overspray. They get so good at cutting in first, and we do find that that's the best method to apply around the perimeter and then come back in and spray the field. We have a number of coverages on the can. What you'll see is about 150 to 185 square feet. I told you that porosity is not an issue for us, whether it's porous or non-porous. That's the only reason that's there. So if you're doing a job where you've got a bunch of self-leveling compound to bring up an area, but then you level out and you're going over you know, a burnished concrete, you would do 150 square feet over the more porous stuff, and you would do 185, extend your coverage over the stuff like this. So we have a high moisture adhesive that would be a bit heavier, and it would just be like an extra couple of passes. But the keys to this adhesive, where we've dumbed it down, we've gotten rid of all this ancillary stuff. We've gotten rid of these buckets. We've gotten rid of the trowels. And with this adhesive, if you can say, okay, I've gotten the correct pattern, and I'm literally just waiting for it to tack up. It does need to achieve tack so that you lightly touch the adhesive and there's no transfer to your fingers. That you've accomplished it. That's all you really need to understand. We found that when we're developing these adhesives and as we're making improvements, one improvement was the FRP, the development of the FRP adhesive. We had gone about 2 years into Walmart work with our flooring adhesive with great success, and they said, we're having all these problems with FRP work. And then, like, if you go into a Walmart, you see that blue wainscot kind of like protective paneling look. So they said they had a lot of issues with moisture bubbling, you know, through, and just a lot of failures. Because what they were doing is they were saying, oh, by the way, the GC would say, hey, painters, you're now also installing FRP. And I'm like, we've never installed FRP. Or the blue protective wall paneling. So we developed something that kind of stripped out all those possibilities of failure too. No longer are you worried about if you don't get the adhesive rolled out and displaced correctly. Because our adhesive, it's impossible for it to displace once it tacks up. Temperature, once it tacks up, cannot affect the adhesive. I've taken, in tests with LVT on walls, I've heated up the LVT from 72 all the way up to 140 degrees. Sorry, Fahrenheit, my apologies. And the adhesive might slightly soften, but the unique nature of our product is when we let it cool back down to normal room temperature, it regained 100% of its bond strength. So that is something that's really unique, because typically most trowel adhesives, once they reach a fail state, they have no regain. So it does make for, you know, some unique environments for repairs and stuff like that.
Have you tried this with vinyl base?
So we have. In hospital installations, a lot of guys will use our stuff, our sheet goods adhesive for the flash cove, but we always recommend the manufacturer's recommended product. Our stuff will work for the base. It works for a lot of different things. The FRP thing, we're learning new applications every day. I swear Joe and I hit 10 plus sites in the last couple of days, and we learned more about possible applications than I ever would have thought of if I hadn't gone with Joe. It will work for the vinyl, but it's a little, frankly, it's a little messy for the vinyl. Spray lock, the one thing that our tagline, I don't know if it's visible in any of our documents here, but it's solutions that stick. Sometimes the solution, though, is someone else's product, you know, and we're always going to be a company that says, you know, even if we have to push in the direction of Taylor or someone else, you know, someone else's product, our goal is to make sure that we're not involved in a failure. And sometimes that's just not us, you know. So we do a lot of work with just, I think, every manufacturer except for Shaw right now in the States. So we're partnered up with a lot of different, awesome moving parts and learning a lot as we go. But we're finding where we fit and we're finding where we don't fit.
How much are you grabbing from manufacturers? Because one thing I've noticed in the past while is certain manufacturers want you to use certain products, so like MAPI, custom.
Mm-hmm.
So how much have you guys expanded to the manufacturers up here to?
So what I meant by that is we make adhesives for just about every manufacturer in the state. We're pushed with the flooring manufacturers a lot. We are an adhesive that they say if you don't use our spray, you don't get a warranty. And there are often times where they'll go with, for example, if it's a lower moisture job, they'll go with a cheaper adhesive, and we're fine with that. There are so many times where we get the direct business because they want the spray lock name. That's where it's at in the US. The spray lock name carries a lot of weight. Our warranties are second to none. And in the product development, the potential for failure, we have the lowest sales to claim ratio in the world. And that's something we're very proud of. So oftentimes we'll find ourselves in that situation. So we go about it two ways. One area where we're different than a lot of adhesive manufacturers is we maintain an SOP list on our website. So we have our own lab, our own testing centers, and we test all the flooring ourselves from every manufacturer. We have about 800 products on there right now. And we list SOPs. Those statements combined with our warranty supersede the flooring manufacturer's warranty. But we're at the point now where manufacturers will tell you, and we do hear it from time to time. Just the other day I had someone from Target say, oh, if you don't use our adhesive, you're not going to get the warranty. The problem is they said it to Walgreens. Where Spraylock's at right now is Walgreens at Christmas time came to us and said, we will only use flooring that you approve. Anyone else is off the table. So they didn't know that. So I had to go back to them and say, do you want the business or not? Because we actually recommended the Target product. And they just didn't know that. So I would say in the past, we probably run across that a lot more. We ran across problems where the manufacturer just had it in their head. They wanted to sell the sundry with their product. They liked the system approach. But just so you know as well, if it's someone that we don't, like if there's a manufacturer in Canada that we're not new or that we're not working with, we will match any system warranty they have. So there's never a risk of being in a situation where the manufacturer won't have a warranty. It's also against the law for the manufacturer not to provide a materials warranty, and we're covering bond anyway. But if you ever come across a problem like that, we'll work hand in hand with you. We'll make sure that we're getting whatever that manufacturer needs to know that they no longer have any liability with the bond. So, because this is not a new adhesive. It may be newish to Canada. It's got a quarter century of success in the States. So there's an absolute ton of flooring down. All right, so here you can kind of see there's no transfer really to my finger. And in a second here, you guys can come up and feel what the tack is like. We're real close there too. So what I'm gonna do, just real quick, I don't think that people truly get how significant instant shear is. Is there a knife? I don't think I can fit this on this thing. You have a blade for cutting flooring in your purse?
Yeah, that's why.
Okay, you and I are going to be friends, not enemies. Okay. Awesome.
She's ready to go at any moment.
I guess so. She's a true professional, yeah. You'll notice there's a little bit of adhesive in my hand from this. I've had people say, how can, you're going to have a little overspray. It's a spray adhesive. We do our best. But what I always tell people is wear a latex glove on your hand. Throw it away when you're done. It'll keep the adhesive off your hand. It's just the easiest way to go about it. We've had companies say, can you develop a little fan tip on there? The problem with that is it might lead to some spray out pattern issues though, because the adhesive could start knocking into that tip. But it costs $40,000 to develop a new tip. So we're real happy with the one we have right now. We're gonna be investing, like I said, in these new tips where if you saw the tips on here, just for 1 second, it's just a straightforward little nozzle there. And we'll have like some kind of flat platform there for your finger. And so it'll take away, a lot of people complain about that kind of 90-degree piece there, kind of pinches the finger after a while. I totally get it. So we're always going to be looking for, like when I hand out business cards, they're for you to kind of target someone to complain to if there's ever an issue. I want to be a resource for you guys. If you have problems, if you have ideas, whatever it takes, we're not, like I said, we want to partner with you guys. We want to be a good resource for you. So I'm just going to throw that down there. If you need to reposition it, like I said, we'll achieve max or initial cure after about an hour. Even though it's tacked up and ready to go, we will have max bond. If you have a large product, a lot of times they require you to do a matte bond test. So what we would recommend is 5 days is kind of our max performance strength, with the exception of our sheet goods and our rubber adhesive, and I don't know why I'm talking about it because we don't have them here right now. But those products, we've got some new chemistry. Our polymers continue to cross-link for about a year. So they continue to build strength, which is important in certain environments because sometimes there's caustic chemicals being used, so we don't want something that's going to weaken. We want something that's going to increase in strength. But so even without, this will be my 200-pound roller right here, and it is not possible to move this. You could come over here if you want and give it all you can. But if I want to, I can still peel that up, put it right back down in the same spot. Then I cannot move it again. I know that's really dramatic, but it sells. Come on, it sells. Here, can you give this to her? No, I'm telling you, it's really important to have this kind of performance. When you roll us, we still want rolling on flooring, because what that does is it compresses it into a film state, and that just puts you in complete contact. It increases the bond points. This guy here, even very, very minimal points of contact, it has a very aggressive bond. If you're doing sheet installs, we always tell people to kind of really carefully line up your first bit because it's just a very, very aggressive bond. But you can still put it in place. Oh, that's offline. So I'm going to pull that off and refit it. Now this piece was a little warped, so it may pop here in the thing, but it's the same idea. It is not possible to move. You guys are free to come over here when we're done and do your best. But if I want to, I can still peel it off, apply it right back to the same spot, and have the exact same performance. And again, the beauty behind this, regardless of the type of material you're installing on walls, is that this is now ready for an entire day. I can't tell you how much production's lost when your horse blinders are on and all you see is this one sheet I'm supposed to work on instead of seeing this entire space. And again, in this industry after COVID, man, we're so behind on projects. So everyone's looking for ways to speed things up. For wall work, for flooring, easily 50% more productive. We list 30% because we never want to oversell something and have someone screw it up and say, oh, it's 20%, man, you know, or whatever. But with this, our feedback on the wall product is a 50% increase. They're installing twice as much as they were in the past. Same with the flooring. You should know too, we don't release adhesives from our facility until they can withstand full submersion in a high alkaline bath for at least a week. So we'll take a concrete custom poured slab, and then we'll put our adhesive on it, we'll bond flooring, and then we'll have a side thing where we take just the raw adhesive, we let that tack up, we submerge both of them. If at any point in that process they fail, we go back to the drawing board. So even though we're not warranting that you install flooring in a pool, because the flooring will fail much faster than our product will. But what we want is for you to know, okay, there's a warranty that really covers me, that's stout, but above and beyond that, man, I've got this level of protection that's unheard of.